when you said God takes you back over old situations for healing and stuff, and I'm wondering, why is it that children accept as truth things that people say to them, and then they internalize it?
Well, I mean, we could have a whole discussion on child psychology here, and I'm sure that Jim could help us a lot with that. But the fact is that part of growing up as a child is that you're actually, your perception of reality is being fabricated or being put together as you have these experiences. And most of the time, of course, emotionally children are wide awake, but psychologically, it takes time for their brain to awaken. So most of the things that you remember when you were a little kid are things that there's strong emotions attached to. Those are the memories that burn into your psyche. But those memories are also the ones that can have the biggest impact in terms of shaping your personhood. Now, when you get older, God brings you over the same ground, and then he shows you that burned pathway, and then he asks, he's trying to show you how you are a slave because of this event or this, whatever somebody said. And then he takes you over the pathway, and then he's asking, giving you invitation. Do you want to stay this way, or do you want to be something else? And then there's a healing to the old pathway, and then you can form a new pathway. So depending on the status of the person of who they were when they said it to you, the words that they said to you could actually set you on the path for the rest of your life.
I think your point is well taken, that most of our perceptions are distorted.
Absolutely.
They're very distorted. I was wondering how Chris is responding to his original question to you about fasting and prayer, and is that helping him?
It's helping me a lot. I'm learning a lot. Things I have to think about, and things I have to do. But I am learning a lot, and I appreciate it very much.
Very good.
I'm
Craig.
reminded of my devotion this morning. I was reading from the book Christ Triumphant, and it was talking about David, and actually the title for today's devotion was "Our Ideas of God Are Based on Our Experiences." So it really speaks to this, what we're talking about. It said, the psalmist David in his experience had many changes of mind. This idea of fasting from ways we used to think. At times he obtained views of God's will and ways. He was highly exalted. Then as he caught sight of the reverse of God's mercy and changeless love, everything seemed to be shrouded in a cloud of darkness. When he meditated upon the difficulties and dangers of life, they looked so forbidding that he thought himself abandoned by God because of his sins. He viewed his sin in such a strong light that he exclaimed, "Will the Lord cast off forever, and will he be favorable no more?" As he wept and prayed, he obtained a clearer view of the character and attributes of God, and being educated by heavenly agencies, he decided that his ideas of God's justice and severity were exaggerated. As David considered God's pledges and promises to Israel, knowing they were for all who need them as much as for Israel, he appropriated them to himself. As David appropriated these promises, the privileges to himself, he decided that he would no longer be hasty in judgment, becoming discouraged and casting himself down in helpless despair. His soul took courage as he contemplated the general character of God as displayed in his teaching, his forbearance, his surpassing greatness and mercy, and he saw that the works and wonders of God are to have no confined application. But again, David's experience changed. As he saw the transgressors and sinners were allowed to receive blessings and favors, while those who really loved God were compassed with difficulties and perplexities that the open sinner did not have, he thought that God's ways were not equal. For I was envious at the foolish when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. They are not in trouble as other men. David could not understand till he went into the sanctuary of God, and then, he says, I understood their end. Surely thou didst set them in slippery places, thou castest them down into destruction. It is good for me to draw near to God.
Amen.
I think, we all go through this process in our experience where we have these different views of God based on our experiences, and he's bringing us through a learning process to better understand.
That's right. And we become new creations at that point. And that's the whole point. You know, the Bible talks about so much. If any man is in Christ, he is a new creation. Well, that means I'm a new person today from who I was yesterday. That the person I was yesterday is dead. He's gone. That Tim Raymond's gone. I'm a new Tim Raymond, and tomorrow must be a new Tim Raymond. That every day we're to be a new. I mean, if we're to die daily, to die every day, I'm to be a new creation. I'm going to be created, and of course we're going to continue throughout eternity to be recreated again and again, from glory to glory, right? As he says in Corinthians. So the idea is that I'm not to hold on to anything in my mind as if it's something absolute that can't be removed. There's nothing in me that's absolute. The only thing that's absolute in this universe is God. And God knows who he created me to be. I don't. And God knows what he originally created me for, and I don't. So we're on a journey to come to know God, and in the journey of coming to know God, we come to know ourselves. And I like what she says there about David's views of himself changes many times. Well, that's what's supposed to be happening to us. I mean, the whole idea of becoming, more and more humble. Well, I can only become more humble when I realize that I'm not, or that I think I got it all together. I think I've arrived, or you have these crazy thoughts that you finally, you get out of this pit, and you think you climbed 1,000 miles out of this pit, and so you've arrived, and then you realize, oh no, no, thinking I've arrived, now I'm just on the bottom. I'm just at the bottom of another pit. I mean, thinking I've arrived has just put me into a situation where I'm not starting another journey. And so, every day is a day that we can draw closer to God and learn more of ourselves. And by the way, that's what we're going to be doing for eternity. So, of course, we won't have our fallen nature to wrestle with, but God is still going to be expanding our thinking and opening our minds and our understanding to see, greater visions of him. And those visions of him are going to transform us. That's going to be the experience that we long for. So if we're going to be having this when we talk about heaven for the rest of eternity, well, then certainly we should be experiencing these things today in this world. Yeah.
But if we accepted that about that we die daily, or what you were teaching me about doing a reset for yourself and everybody else daily, then we'd stop putting ourselves and other people in a box saying, this is the way I am. I am like this. And I've got all these excuses for why I'm like this. And if we could look at it that we die daily, and that I'm supposed to get up every morning and give myself and everybody else a reset, and realize that God's trying to grow me and evolve me, and I'm supposed to be on an upward climb, that it would make it easier. But we lock into putting ourselves in a box and other people in a box, and we say, this is the way I am, or this is the way they are. But we're not. We're fluid. We're supposed to be fluid and constantly changing.
Yes, but see, the problem is that for us, that's scary, because we're these little control freaks that want to make reality knowable and therefore controllable for us. And so when you put yourself in a fluid situation like that, then you're no longer in control, and a lot of us start going, we start going nuts. So we try to label reality the way that we want it to be, so it gives us comfort, and we think there's stability there. But the truth is, it's a lie. That's a lie. And so we believe lies about ourselves and about other people. And we're told all our lives that once you're this way, you can't be anything else. And of course, those are the biggest lies that we hold on to. And those lies direct our life down paths that our life shouldn't go. And then whenever God invites us to freedom, the large places he wants to set us free, then we say, well, no, I can't do that because I'm this or I'm that. It's like, we make no sense. I don't know if you've ever you know, if you've ever, when you were a child, if your parents ever told you something, you're this or that, or you'll always be this, you'll always be that, you know, those sayings, they burn into your psyche, and they actually govern your thinking for years. And for some people, they're old and their parents are gone, and those sayings are still governing their thinking, and they can't break free because they believe the lie. Like I can decree reality for my kids. I don't even know myself, so how can I know them? But see, that's what we do, and that's what the world does. But see, God is the only one that speaks, and reality is what he says. He decrees reality, we don't.
Those thoughts that may happen when you're young, the real cement to that is the affect and the emotion that really entrenches
That's right.
that experience.
That's right. It just burns it into us, doesn't it? And it can take years of fighting to get through it. You know, I'll tell you a little story. I was how old are you when you're in primary? Was it
Probably
7, 8, 9, something like that?
5, 6, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. Or I remember I was a little smart aleck, and I went to camp meeting, and so I was actually, my 3 older brothers were older, and they got out of primary. They went to juniors. Of course, they never stayed in the meetings anyway. So my parents would obviously wanted us to go to the meetings where little kids running around camp meeting, and so I'm with my little brother and me. Of course, I'm the older brother now because my older brothers are gone, and I think there was a cousin of mine was there, and then there was a friend of ours or something from church. Anyways, we were sitting in back, and we were being wise guys. I was being a wise guy, and so you know, they had us all stand up in our little chairs, you know, the little brown chairs, probably like a foot off the ground, you know, the little kids sit in. I can remember we stood up for prayer. Well, I was smart aleck, and I moved the kid's chair from in front of him, that was in front of me, away. So when he sat down, he'd sit on the ground. Well, so he, you know, after prayer, he sat down, he fell on the ground. We started crying like he was really hurt. I mean, anyway, so the primary teacher came over and was going to comfort this kid. So of course he told her what happened, and I'm sitting right there. And of course, you know, she's an older person, I realize, and she's leaning over him and she's patting his back. And so her face is like this far from my face. And then she just says to him, well, don't worry about him. He's going to hell anyway. That's what she said to me. Looked at me right in the eyes, said, don't worry about him. He's going to hell anyway. And I can remember as a little kid, that just burned in my thinking, and that governed so much of my early teen years. I figured, you know, I was just a wild, crazy person, and I, you know, people would ask why you're so crazy, and I didn't know, but as I wrestled with God about it, I realized, you know, I was convinced that I was going to hell anyway, so I was just going to do every terrible thing I could think of doing. I just did it. I mean, what difference does it make? I'm going to hell. That's what I was told. And so, you know, those are the experiences that I had to grow. I had to go through that. And then I had to realize that, well, then that's not true. You know, that was a lie. And that I allowed this woman's decreeing reality to govern who I was. My mother used to call me T for trouble all the time. I was already in enough trouble. I was hyper and had all this energy. They'd label me some type of foolishness today, you know, ADD or all kinds of foolishness. But I was just like, what's that?
And drug you.
Yeah, right. Well, luckily they didn't have that stuff then. I mean, when I got to teenagers, I was trying to do my drugs on my own. So, but anyway, but the point is that, you know, I allowed that person's decreeing reality to govern who I was and my thinking for years, and I didn't even realize it until I saw, of course, where it was going, and I tried to break free, and then I couldn't. And then that's when I saw my need for God, and then He began to bring me over all this ground again, and to show me what had governed my thinking. And then, you know, is that true? And it's like, no. And so, you know, that's why we got to be so careful with the words we speak to other people, we can say something flippantly, or we can say something and we can set someone on a path for a long time that we just have to be so careful with our words. But anyways, you know, it's those experiences of our early life, that's what I have seen in myself. That God brings me back over who I thought I was, and he begins to show me that I'm not who I thought I was, that I'm not what other people decreed me to be, and that he has a plan for me, he has a purpose for me, and his words are true, and his decrees are real, and that they have power to transform. So that's what fasting and prayer is for me, is that, you know, it's actually the process of God recreating us and us cooperating with that process. You know, Mrs. White talks about time of Jacob's trouble, and she talks about having unconfessed sins. You know, if we spend time wrestling with ourselves and wrestling with God, you know, I may not remember every stupid thing I did when I was a kid, but the point is that when I begin to understand the lies that I believed that governed my character and that produced all the actions, I don't have to remember every stupid thing that I did when I was a kid. But remembering the principles and the principles that I adopted that formed my character, that produced all that behavior, is actually me. When I disown that, I'm actually disowning everything that person did. And I don't, so, you know, God is really neat that way. But he so wants to set us free. He wants to make us new creators. He created us to be in his image and his likeness, and he wants to restore that image and likeness in us.